We are thrilled to have the North Texas Devils sponsoring the Pies Nation podcast once again for season 2026, just in time to celebrate their 5th anniversary as a club. They are one of the best clubs to compete in the USAFL and are still on the lookout for new talent for both their male and female programs in the lead up to the new season. Their aim is to have 2 male teams and a female side compete in the Nationals in Florida later this year. They've got a new coach in Brendan Silva, and their main man, Peter Wood, is a passionate Pies man, and it's why it's great to have their support across the campaign. To learn more about the club or register your interest as a player, click the links in our YouTube bio or podcast description and join the Devils today. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Pies Nation podcast, where the Pies are hot and the drinks are cold. My name is Nicholas Sacco, your host once again. This is episode 9 of season 8, or episode 211 if you're counting from the beginning. The old adage came true once again on Thursday night. No matter how awful Collingwood could be, there's always a Carlton side that will make you look 10 times better. And that's exactly what happened and how it played out. We escaped with a narrow 5-point victory over the Blues to get back to winning ways, but more importantly, heap some more misery on our bitter rivals. We discuss all the big talking points to come out of the tight victory on Thursday night, get some very pointed reactions thanks to SpeakPie. Plus, we speak to our next guest, the crowd competition winner, and Serge brings us the VFL report after the Pies returned to action on Friday. And it's nice to have Jack Dugan and Marcus Callahan in the Backchat studios, particularly after what took place on Thursday night. I know there's going to be so many complexities of the game that we will discuss, and there's some issues for us going forward, but it gets thrown all out the window, Marcus, when you beat Carlton, and it's just nice to get one over them again.
I don't know where to start today, gentlemen. There's a part of me that looks at this match across 3 quarters and thinks that was one of the worst games of footy you could watch against the old rival. It really told us how poorly I think both sides are going. It then turned to 3-quarter time, and it's a completely different episode today, describing the events that took place in quarter 4. So I'm coming in very cocky today, very happy, had a great what felt like a long weekend, given the Thursday night fixture. Jacko, but do you share my enthusiasm on this Monday evening, or are you a little bit sour given what we dished up for 3 quarters?
No, absolutely. I think you could do 2 different pods, boys, about this game. The one that Marcus just mentioned of the first 3 quarters and then the last quarter. And, we've absolutely owned that football club under Craig McRae and on the Craig McRae Voss era. I think it's like 7-1 now, I think the record is, or thereabouts. But yeah, really dismal show of football, I thought, for the first 3 quarters from both sides. Skill errors all over the park, some really easy and crucial goals missed, and then, as you mentioned, mate, the 3-quarter time siren went, and I dare say it was really down to one bloke, Nick Daicos, flicked the switch, and the game really came alive, and that really did feel like, what we've come so used to over the past 4 years in these Collingwood-Carlton rivalries. But I think in that big long list of great wins against them, I think it's probably right down the bottom, despite it being so close. I will never get sick of beating them so close, especially when we can come from behind when there's so much hope. But yeah, not one for the history books, this one.
It is conflicting, isn't it? Because you look at this game against any other opponent and you think, gee, we really got away with one, and there's so much to dissect and look into. And then for 5 minutes when the siren goes and you realise who you've beaten and how you've done it as well, it's pretty glorious viewing. Now, as you can tell by my throat, excuse me, only the gravest of illnesses prevented me from going to a Collingwood-Carlton game, and that's what happened last week. I unfortunately couldn't be there. Marcus, you suffered the same fate, centre-half pine for you as well. So, Jack, seeing as you're the only one there, describe it, because we've been in those situations before where it's gone right down to the wire. I look at this to the Pendles 400 game where we did have a little bit of a lead late on. Carlton kicked a couple of goals back, and then in a very similar fashion, I should say, a shot after the siren that doesn't go the way of Carlton ends up being the result of the match. But what was the emotion and the atmosphere like, particularly on Thursday night?
Look, as I just mentioned just then, mate, I think that last quarter was just so typical of Collingwood-Carlton clashes in the last 4 or 5 years that the emotion of it was still very high, and it was almost like everyone had forgotten about the first 3 quarters of footy that we'd watched, and you were just there in the moment. But you're dead right. It was very, very similar tones to the Pendles 400 game, and Look, there's no wonder that that footy club doesn't turn up in last quarters, because their own supporters can't even sit there for a whole last quarter of footy. I mean, it's honestly one of the strangest experiences I've ever had, with 10 minutes to go, only being 8 points down. Yes, Collingwood absolutely had the ascendancy in the game, but streaming out of the MCG they were on Thursday night, Nico. And I just think that's probably indicative of where they're at as a football club at the moment. And I'd honestly, if I was a Carlton person at the moment, I'd be ashamed to see that. And it's easy for me to say that, considering we've had a bit of success certainly in my lifetime, and they've been relatively starved. But to only be a goal or a kick or two behind and be streaming out of the game. Yes, again, they've had those type losses throughout the rest of the year, and then on the flip side of that, how excited they all were to be having that shot for a draw at the end of the game.
Yeah.
I mean, they're embarrassing is probably the word that comes to mind to describe that mob at the moment. But look, again, really happy to get the win. Carried on like a second-hand lawnmower, Nico, when the siren went, as we always tend to do against them. But in hindsight and looking over the game again, it's not going to be one that probably will stick in the memory bank.
No. They've got a lot of issues, that club, and we will not be the one to dissect it. I think everyone else has had their say, so we will gladly just sit back and observe.
Absolutely.
All right, let's get into the match, and we'll start as we always do with the pie that caught our eye. Marcus, I'm going to kick it off with you. Again, a few that you could have chosen, I feel like, particularly with how the game panned out. Some for good, some for bad, but where did you lean this week?
Yeah, a whole mix to select from, really. Narrowing it down is tough, but I have to go with Oscar Steen, and I want plenty of chat on this podcast and hopefully among Collingwood people about just how influential and important this fourth gamer is to the shape of our football club, the prospects of Nick Daicos winning a Brownlow this season, and really just giving us a look at a side that is so vastly different from the one we're now seeing, where Darcy Cameron is the first choice ruckman at the centre bounce. I'm convinced this guy went as far as Nick Daicos did in the first 15 minutes of that last quarter to helping us win this game. I know Daicos was the one with the goals and the goal assists, rather, and being the one who gets the ultimate accolades. And he was that good, and I can't wait to get into how good Nick's game in his last quarter was. But Oscar Steen, the things he did in that final term and throughout the match too, that told me the coaches have actually recognised that he is the guy to lead with that big vertical jump at the centre bounces. It changes the way that we look. I think we won the first 7 clearances or something of the last term. Undoubtedly, Nick's goal got us onto that new level of momentum that we cried out for in this game. But I just think you look at his stat sheet: 8 disposals, 2 goals, bunch of hit outs, but he's a high impact player, and to find a ruckman this early in his career, it's rare and it's to be celebrated, and I'm really looking forward to the next 200 games.
Well, the first big tick for me was seeing him take the first centre bounce.
We've talked about it.
The first centre bounce.
Time.
I mean,
he did in his debut game, but since then it's been a bit. Yeah.
Well, he ended up having 21 for the match.
And 7 to DC. I just had a look.
There you go.
So centre bounce 10 is.
So clearly there had to be a shift made, and I'm very glad that the coaching staff.
14 to Cameron, 2 to Steen the week prior against Freo. So that's a huge shift, and we know how important winning clearance against Carlton is.
Yeah.
And I think we matched them in that area throughout the match.
Well, even more so, and this is what I found so fascinating watching. Very few scores were generated by either side from clearances in the first 3 quarters of the game. And it just became pretty obvious to us that if we can start getting on top in that area of the ground, no, it sounds so obvious, but when you start getting on top in that area of the ground, you start winning games of football. When you've got the best player in the competition that can win clearances with his eyes shut, then why are you not trying to just tap it down his throat on every occasion? So obviously there's a few things that happen to allow us to flick the switch, but more in point to Oscar's performance, outstanding, not just in the ruck and his ability to tap it to the advantage of our midfielders, but gosh, he was such a great presence up forward. That big clunk mark deep inside forward 50 to get his goal kicking going. I mean, this is a man that we need to see stay in this side for the short to medium future, not just with the way that the game's being played these days, but with his football ability. I mean, he's grinded it out in the VFL system for 2-3 years, waiting for this opportunity, and he's taken it with both hands.
And just to come back, I'll get your 2 cents in a moment, Jacko, just to come back to the start of that final term. So first contest, he gets it down to Nick, and we know what happened with that amazing goal to Daicos. Next contest, he gets the tap. I don't think it's extracted from the centre, but he lays this enormous tackle on Cripps and kind of gets winded in the process, but immediately he's sucking in the big ones and up he goes again. And like, he's just the repeat efforts from a young guy like that. I don't think that's always something you see from big ruckmen. They're often thinking about being risk averse, but he seems like he embraces the contest. He wants to be impactful where he can with his physicality. And so, Jack, I've got nothing but praises for Oscar Steen this week.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just going to echo those sentiments, I guess. I mean, we've been crying out for it since that GWS game to see him to just be in the centre square, let alone, getting a proper run through there. And I thought even when he didn't win the ruck tap on Thursday night, that he still made that second effort, as you said, Marcus, to really, will himself onto the ball, get the ball going forward. And then, I'll be honest, he's just given Tim Emery and Dan McStay a lesson in forward craft as well, running and jumping at full flight in the ball, using the full weight of his body, just really throwing himself around. I thought it was amazing. And now the watch is for mine into Anzac Day and the rest of the season. We need to use him like that for the rest of the year. I still thought Darcy Cameron had an immense impact on the game as well around the ground.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how I foresee this, this kind of role change, if you will, is going to unfold. But he's just got to keep getting consistent time in there. And I still can't understand why it went from the GWS game to being starved of opportunity
Crows.
in there. Against we've got a lesson against the Crows, and then he plays against GWS. Was that the week?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're spot
on.
And
then plays, dominates, and then
Brisbane and Freo. Nowhere
I think total of
Brisbane.
Total of about 5 centre bounce attendances, Nico. So, yeah, that just baffles me. So that's going to be a really big watch for me going to Anzac Day on Saturday. If we clearly identified that, and we need to keep running with it now.
And just final word on Steen from me. I think that the other thing that needs to be mentioned is that if I'm Nick Daicos or Ned Long or Angry Anderson, any of these blokes going through the middle, Jack Crisp, if I know that my ruckman has a better vertical leap than the opposition ruckman, their athletic traits, and you think he's got a little bit of extra vertical against whoever he's up against, if I'm Nick, I think I'm a little bit more offensive in how I'm thinking about getting out of the centre bounce. Whereas if I'm thinking, I don't know if he's going to be able to get over this bloke with the new rules, I might be just thinking a little bit more defensive. So just the way he's been able to tap it and give Nick first use, I think that just turns his offensive instincts on, and hopefully we'll see it with other midfielders. So just a game-changing innovation in the Collingwood game style, and we haven't seen it for long enough. So very excited.
Yeah, that could go a long way towards us returning to an attacking side that we've failed to see over the last month.
It flows onto the forward line. When we get it in there quick and the ball hits the deck, we look more dangerous. Jamie Elliott's licking his lips. And I don't know if you saw that side in the last quarter, but they kicked 7 bloody goals because it was coming in quick, Jacko.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a different side, and all due to the fact that we looked, as Mark said, just highlighted beautifully, we looked like we had an ability to attack more. Even there's been games where we will win the centre bounce clearance or centre bounce tap, I should say, but our players, aren't quite used to that. The Nick Daicos of the world aren't quite used to just getting it fed straight down their throat. Not that Darcy Cameron doesn't have the ability to do that, but especially in that centre bounce with the way that the rules are now, it gets thrown up exactly the same every time. There's not so much,
variation.
Variation in the ball flight, and his ability to jump and give us first use is amazing. So please, Craig McRae, if you're listening, no doubt you are, just play him in the centre square this week against the Bombers. The pilot caught my eye, Nico, was Pat Lipinski. Church mouse quiet. His start to the year had been up until this stage. We mentioned it a little bit last week. I mean, I was shocked now to read the stats just coming in here today that he ended up with 27. I think that's probably not a great representation of his overall impact on the game, and I don't think he'll get votes in this game by any stretch. And I really think there's still a ways to go for him to get back to the form that we know he can be in. But considering how quiet he has been up until this point in the year, his impact on the game I thought was really positive, and it's hopefully going to be a trend in the right direction. Another one of these players that we've been crying out for it over the last 2 or 3 weeks. For these types, you look at all the goals goal scorers. It's not just Pat Lipinski, it's Bo McCreary hitting the scoreboard. Nick Daicos, obviously. Ned Long can bob up. He didn't kick a goal on the weekend, but this is where we're going to win a lot of games of footy if blokes like Pat Lipinski can get on the end of, at least good kicks going inside 50. And of course, he was able in that last quarter to get on the end of one. And those are just the exact opportunities in big games or in games in general that we need to take. And if we're going to be a good side this year, blokes like Pat Lipinski need to be having games like that more often.
Yeah.
Three coaches' votes for Lipper.
Did he?
Yeah.
He redeemed himself.
I thought it was generous.
Yeah.
I thought he was in our bottom 5 up until 3/4 time.
So yeah. He redeemed himself in that last quarter with a few moments, and obviously getting on the scoreboard was one of them.
He went back with the flight against, I think, Hayward in defence as well. He went up and won a free kick in defence, and he put on the smother as well that led to the memory goal. So there were some 1%ers there.
Definitely. For me, he just doesn't do that enough.
Exactly.
Just does it nowhere near enough. And I said it to you guys, I think some stage in the second or third quarter. If he's not going to be a crumbing forward that can create goals, if he's not going to put his head over the footy and be a contested ball, what else is he in the side for? Because his kicking inside 50 has been very below average compared to last year when he was top of the competition. And only when I feel like the game is opening up and there's run inside forward 50 that Lipinski is able to be used in the most advantageous way. I just don't feel like he is contributing enough in other areas of the ground that suggests to me that he has a spot in this team going forward. As I said, we've been crying out to have some small crumbing forwards that can create pressure and, again, create goal opportunities. He's either not being put in those positions or he's just not doing those enough for me to warrant him being in that area of the ground. He's a great runner, we know that, but again, I just don't like I don't see enough two-way running from Patrick Lipinski to suggest to me that he can stay in this side. Yep, had some great moments in the last quarter and obviously fantastic to see that he got a lot of the footy, but unless we see more of that from him going forward, I don't think the praise that he's getting from this game, potentially from some, is warranted. It's very harsh because he's been very good for us at times over these last few years, but I was very concerned for his footy up until 3/4 time.
And I agree with that sentiment. I just think with how quiet he has been, just to see him getting his hands on the footy is a big tick for me at least. Again, impact on the game, probably not great, as you guys have just highlighted. But he's not alone either. Like he's not alone. There's probably 4 or 5 players in a very similar position throughout the game, throughout the ground, I should say. That since going back to this slow, methodical build-up style of play that we haven't really seen over the last 2 or 3 years, he's one of those players that in the last quarter when the ball went. And it went quick. He looked good. He looked like the Pat Lipinski of old, if you could use that term. So maybe it's not a Pat Lipinski problem, or some others that have been mentioned, Demick Stay, Tim Membry. Maybe it's a Collingwood just needed try and get the ball going and get it going quick.
But talking about this handful, maybe it's even closer to 10 players that have been below the mark to start the season. I feel like Lipper is another one who's unfortunately suffering from a lot of the poor, slow ball transfer that we haven't been able to utilise in a way that leads to a winning score. Yeah. But that final term, I think Fly referenced us looking a bit like the 22-23 Pies, and I think guys like Pat Lipinski, Crispy, to an extent, Isaac Quaynor, these are guys who have played a lot of footy where we've been down at 3/4 time, and I know that's not a sustainable position to be in, but I just wonder if guys like Lipinski, while they probably weren't there enough through the first 3 quarters, once we came alive, he did, and cool, he got on the train and hit the scoreboard himself, and I think he did do some nice things in the last term, but was this the quarter that activated certain players in season 2026? Jamie Elliott is the obvious other one that I want to get to in a bit more detail shortly, but the point I'm making here is that when we win it out of the middle and we put the defenders of the opposition on notice quickly, it seems like we get back to that energetic quality that we had where we were insatiable to watch throughout many parts of 22 and 23. Obviously, we know what happened with the prelim and a granny. So just an interesting one to watch. We've had 6 weeks of evidence now to show that we can defend, but we can't necessarily score. But did this final quarter against Carlton show us something else, or are they just a mentally fragile football team, Nico, and we should treat it as an asterisk?
Both. Pie caught my eye. There's a few that we've already mentioned that I want to speak about in a bit more detail. But for the second week running, I'm taking the easy way out, and I'm going Nick Daicos. I'm sorry. It's just
Yeah.
This man, 13 touches in the last quarter completely turns it on his head. Got others involved in the game. Jamie Elliott's one of them, which I'm sure, as you said, we'll touch on very shortly. But it's funny, they ranked his 99 games leading up into the Thursday night's clash. I'd love to know where that Thursday night game ends up sitting in his first 100. Because, mind you, the way he was just able to lift us on his back and just put on an epic display that, again, I was so jealous I wasn't there. I've watched Nick do some great things in person. I'm very grateful for it. But to not actually be there, I was a little bit jealous because just the way, just his craftiness with footy in hand, getting into the right spots, again, as I said, involving others, particularly Jamie Elliott. I don't have any more words. I was just so amazed by what this man is doing. We are in some serious trouble when this guy is not playing the way that he is. And the reliance on him, I'm sure there'll be times throughout the year that we can have a chat about that. But I just want to try and wrap my head around how prolific and how incredible that this man is and how much of an influence he is having on this football club, because I'll glaze him all we need to. I don't care. He is the man. Feed him the footy at all costs, and I was just so grateful that we had him on Thursday night, because we're no chance of winning that game without him.
Yeah, I'm not sure what he's asking for when his contract's up for extension once again.
I'll put in for it.
Nico, but oh God, let's start a GoFundMe or something. Yeah. No, I think Tassie's actually come out and said that they won't be looking at him in the last couple of days due to his price tag. But that's a conversation for another day. But coming back, I actually watched Nick sign Dan Gorringe's leg.
That was very good viewing, wasn't it?
Yeah, so well done to Dan Gorringe. It was very funny. And Nick was there, obviously, and asked, how does this rank? And very humble Nick used language like one of my stronger performances. So, yeah, look, I think it's right up there, Nico. Anzac Day and against the Blues a couple of seasons also comes to mind. But, Jacko, you were there. Take us into the sights that you saw.
Look, we've gone over it a million times. There's been so many times where we've gone to the footy or watched from afar and just marvelled at his ability. And this felt like a performance, as you said, Nico, where he just got to three-quarter time. And I'd like to thank Mark Pittonet for telling him that he looked good with a shaved head as well, because I think that might have just fired him up that little bit extra. Not that he needed it, but that typified by his goal straight away, straight after three-quarter time break, rips it out of the centre, gets it going forward, and then just burns his opponent. I think
Walsh.
It might have been Hollands or Walsh at the time.
Walsh.
And then ends up, kicking the goal that really, as Marcus highlighted before, got our momentum going forward. This was such a different performance in the sense that he just stood out so much that without him, it wouldn't have been possible. He just said, righto, boys, come with me. Let's go and win this bloody thing. And because he was everywhere in that last quarter. He was everywhere. He was deep defensive 50, centre ground, inside, last kick inside 50, handing the ball off. I think he might have had, along with his goal, might have had about 2 or 3 goal assists as well. Just a freak. So what more can you say about him? I would say this is probably, maybe not in terms of his best performance ever over the course of a 4-quarter period and the stat sheet and whatnot, but this is without doubt the best quarter of footy that he's played for the Collingwood Footy Club.
Yeah, hard to argue. And he's had some unbelievable fourth quarters as well. That Anzac Day one's another prime example. The question I have for you about Nick is David King raised a point on First Crack yesterday where he said we need to start looking at Nick Daicos spending a lot more time up forward, because he's still one of the most damaging players in the competition when he does play in a deeper forward set. And again, we saw a little bit of that on Thursday night. He has made some comment in the past that he wants to elevate that part of his game going forward and be like some others. You look at an Isaac Heaney, a Paddy Dangerfield, a Dustin Martin, who have the ability to have that forward craft, be a strong presence inside forward 50, but also still be able to win his own footy in the midfield and win the clearances as he's already done in his 100-game career. My question to you is, we are struggling to kick goals and we are having a poor time at it right now, getting this forward structure to a point where we are able to put big bags of goals on the scoreboard. Does it get to a stage where we start putting Nick more inside forward 50 to give us a greater chance of kicking goals? Or do you believe that his influence in midfield is so great that we would be in an even bigger predicament by not having him in there because we can't get the footy ourselves when Nick's not winning the clearances or getting first touch from an Oscar Steen, for example. Would you like to see Nick spend more time up forward to give us a better chance of kicking goals at a greater capacity? Or do you think he needs to stay in the midfield and we just utilise Nick in the forward line on the odd occasion?
For a side that's been struggling to kick 70 points this season, and then we come out with Nick resting forward in what we saw against the Blues, like it's a no-brainer. We kicked 6 goals until three-quarter time, and then we put 7 goals, 1 on the board in the final term. So I think that it's a risk to become a little bit too... We're already very Nick-centric, just as a football club, and why not? Because he's one of the best players in the comp. But I would love to see him rest forward more. I think he also likes the idea of 30 and 2 because your chance of getting the 3 votes actually improves as well. So let's not take that away from what might be going on, but reading between the lines there, Nick. But yes, Kingy's absolutely right. We need to see him evolve to that next level by hitting the scoreboard more frequently. And rather than going for a spell on the pine, rest forward, put him in the goal square, give him the time that he needs. I just don't know if we can rely on it in like parts of the first, second and third quarter and still expect him to have the impact through the middle, because he was gassed in that final term. Like, he was red in the face. It was so impressive to see him wear the tag and still have so much impact with Hollands on him. Yeah, I don't know if I would be sending Ollie Hollands to him, but so they did. And we benefited from it. So, Jacko, where do you sit on the matter? Is it a risk for us getting too Nick-centric in the forward line, or is this the next evolution of Nick Daicos that needs to happen?
I think it is. And it was interesting because I heard him say that, that he wants to develop his game and be a bit more like these Isaac Heaney types. And I think they're two very different players, and they're physically very different. I think Isaac Heaney's like one of these, he's a bit taller, probably got a bit more size, and you can sort of play him out as that one out forward. I don't think they're not that it's not possible. Anything's possible with Nick Daicos, but I don't know if I love the idea of playing a Nick Daicos one out inside 50 as rest him up forward for sure. I think the mould that we need to follow with this is more of like the Zach Bailey type mould, not deep inside 50, not in the midfield, kind of somewhere in between half forward, if that's where we're going to play him. Gets involved with on the scoreboard, but also gets his teammates involved. I worry if we were to throw Nick in the goal square, not that he's not capable of it, I've seen it before, but I think over a longer period of time, especially against the bigger, defenders of the comp, thinking of Hawthorn coming up in a couple of weeks, your Josh Battles, Sicily's, Barasses of the comp, I think he would struggle on a lead or, doubling back and trying to get away from those blokes. So just by virtue of that, he's not quite, the size of a Patrick Cripps or a Isaac Heaney or a Bontempelli or someone like that. But that doesn't mean that, resting up forward is still not an option. I just think the mould in which we take that route needs to be looked at a bit closely. And I really like, we saw it against us only 2 weeks ago, Zach Bailey, he was bloody everywhere. So not even just in the midfield, again, more centre half forward pocket type role. So I think that would be the avenue I'd go. But, what the bloody hell would I know?
Well, the other thing you need to consider here is, okay, if we do send Nick up forward a little bit more than we have been in recent years, do you trust our current midfield mix to win more clearances, to have more contested possessions, to get that ball moving forward at a rate that Nick does when he's in there, to give Nick the best chance of actually having an impact up forward? Because it's all well and good him resting there and playing a role when it goes inside 50, but it has to get there first.
Well, I think it's going to come in games where he gets the heavy tag. Obviously, if there's anything good that was going to come out of the Carlton game, it's that Sam Walsh is squeaky clean because he's now been given the 3rd or 4th bath by Nick Daicos in a row, I'd say.
With bubbles.
With bubbles, absolutely. And the lot, one of those
rubber ducky.
Blow up bombs as well, I reckon he copped as well. He was squeaky clean.
Bit of balm.
Yeah, chamois at the end. Yeah, really good. Anyway, the point I'm making, there are going to come times where we come up against sides who can tag really well. I think that's when you that's when you pull the trigger on Nick going forward. Go and follow him. That's a whole nother kettle of fish worrying about Nick Daicos inside forward 50. And if you can stop that, then good luck to you, because there has been times over this sort of 4 to 5 year period where he does get the heavy tag. Last year on the Gold Coast, Nick, I'm not sure if he was being tagged, but his influence on the game in the guts, it was clear to see it wasn't great. So that is the time for mine. Chuck him forward. I just don't know if while he's in this form and while he's producing so many good clearances inside 50s for us from the centre of the ground, whether we do that. We've seen it in the past where we've had this problem with Jordan De Goey where he goes inside the midfield, has 30 disposals, kills it, goes quiet for a couple of weeks, goes forward, kicks 5 or 6, and then he goes quiet again, then he goes back to the midfield. I don't think they're the same player by any stretch of the imagination. However, it's a very fine balance, and I think you look back, I think you'd see that with Heaney and these other types as well, where they can have if being rest up forward can just relinquish their influence on the game, full stop.
Yeah, no, we're very well said. We'd like to see him more up forward, but yeah, you do wonder what the consequences are. But hopefully those consequences just means he has 30 and 5 every week. Could you imagine?
Well, I think one of the consequences is that he makes defenders nervous. His talent is so supreme that he makes you do funny things without really meaning to, because you're playing on Nick, or Nick's around you, so you're thinking about his impact at ground level perhaps compared to some of these guys who are more talented aerially, such as an Isaac Heaney. But yes, Nico, it'll be a great watch, and I hope that it does happen because he's got the pedigree. We know what his old man could do from the boundary, so why not Nick?
Well, if it does happen, it could help a man like a Jamie Elliott recapture some of his form, which he did, of course, on Thursday night, and it did. I felt like Nick played such an impact on getting Jamie back into the game because, again, a very slow start. The questions start coming again about Jamie. What's his place like in the side? Is he still going to have the influence that he had last year? And all of a sudden, it was a bit of vintage Jamie that we saw on Thursday night. He 3 goals from 18 disposals, very handy ones too, at stages of the game. Is this a one-off? Are we going to see a bit more of this going forward, or is he going to have to rely on a few others around him to get a bit of the footy, or rely more on the way that we're playing our football, being a bit more faster going forward to allow him to get back to some goal-kicking form?
I think there's no question that Jamie Elliott benefits from a side that's getting it in quickly and is playing on more instinct. Yes, he enjoys having a leading lane, and those have been very far and few between this season, and it's probably going to take some more weeks before we see a more functional forward line if we get there, but let's hope we do. And so I'll go further, Nick. I'll say that Daicos actually helped activate his season, not just his game. He's been lackluster. We know he's struggled playing deep forward. It's felt like Jamie Elliott's modus operandi was to try and take a hanger to get a set shot at goal over the first 6 weeks, which is not going to work. And I think that there's plenty more there to be found out about how he interacts with his fellow forwards to get the best out of himself, knowing that Checkers and Coxie are now no longer there. But we saw signs, and there's no doubt this would have helped his confidence. We're playing the Bombers this week, so hopefully he can back it up again. My question is, we then come and play Geelong, and we play Hawthorn against these defences and against some of these more dour defenders that he'll come up against those better sides. Can he do it again? That's where it's really going to stand out for me. So I'm hoping he has another special on Anzac Day. I think he'll be licking his lips as much as anyone, Jacko. But how do you think Jamie's next sort of 4 to 6 weeks pans out?
Oh, yeah, honestly, that first half, again, he wasn't alone again, but I thought it would turn for Jamie Elliott. I didn't think it would go any worse than what it had up until this point in the season, but especially early in that game, giving off goals that he'd ordinarily go back and just
kick into the man on the mark, first kick of the game.
Yeah, exactly right. I just couldn't believe it. And then, of course, as we've mentioned, Nick starts getting his hands on the ball. We start moving the ball a bit quicker, and we start looking a bit more dangerous. And it was so good to see. It was like we got, again, 2 halves of Collingwood footy, and I think there was 2 halves of a Jamie Elliott there where we struggled. Slow, methodical ball play wasn't feeding into our forwards game style. And of course, after we flicked the switch, I should say, after half time or at least 3/4 time, just being able to get in space is just so crucial for a bloke like Jamie Elliott. And I'm of the belief, I really think, and we won't speak too much to it, but I think the loss of Bobby Hill has really hurt Jamie's game. Obviously, he was still able to have a really big impact since Bobby's departure late in last season, but I really think that not having that extra small and the workload on him and Shooter, I think their games, the ability to get off the chain has been really quashed since that. So we've just got to now just find new ways to get it in his hands and look, hopefully more than anything, that second half, because he looked low on confidence in the first half, and we haven't seen that from Jamie Elliott for years, half a decade at least. It was shocking to see. I couldn't believe it. So if anything, let's hope that second half of footy, a really nice goal in in the third quarter, vintage Jamie Elliott, and then, of course, put the game to bed and gave those Blues fans even more nightmares.
How good when he turned to the crowd.
Oh, mate, that was the perfect view for that. It was right behind that kick. So good. So, if anything, Nico, let's hope that that second half of this game can really give him some confidence at least. And look, to be fair, I think he had a really dour game against Fremantle, probably a little bit of the same game against GWS, but I still felt like whenever he got near the ball, he halved the contest a lot of time. So I wasn't worried in the sense that, there was a lot of noise coming about, as you said, he's spotting the side and his form, but I did not expect it to go, the way it went in the first half of this game, and then almost completely did a complete 180, and we looked like we got the old Jamie. So fingers crossed, bit of confidence. He loves playing against the Bombers as well, mate. Anzac Day, big occasion. Who knows?
Bring it on. Before we move on to some of our SpeakPies, can I just ask, because we loved beating Carlton, don't get me wrong, and I'm still enjoying it and have been giving it to quite a few since, but how many cracks do these Band-Aids go? That's not the right saying at all. But anyway, you get what I'm saying.
How many cracks do these pave over?
Yes, that is. Thank you. Yep, sick last week. Because whilst it was a great feeling, of course, to get the win, be back on the winners list after a couple of weeks of losses, and to get over the old rival, that's fantastic. But for 75% of that game, we were going down the barrel of a 2-4 start and potentially our season already crumbling to an end because of the way we were playing our footy. And we have to give credit to Carlton for keeping us in the hunt for some of their shots that they were missing, and vice versa, that you could argue. But before we move on, there's still a lot of sticking points that we need to try and solve here if we're going to be a side of contention this year.
Perfect question to ask at this point in the pod. I think that
got it out eventually. But yeah.
I would have joined you boys in having us 3-3 after 6 weeks.
I said 4-2
when we did our predictions. 4-2 for you, 3-3.
I believe so.
Yeah, I think I got all of our wins and losses wrong, but here we are at 3-3. So to your point, Nico, and I've been mulling this over, we are still very much a chance to finish somewhere in the top 10, and we're in the peloton, is how I would call us, at this very early stage of the marathon season. If we, after the next sort of 4 or 5 weeks, continue to chalk up a win-loss sort of situation, and we go into the bye in that position, and we keep playing Dan McStay, and we keep playing Tim Membry, and Darcy Moore comes back, so we play that sort of older, more mature side. Is that of benefit to us, Jacko, when we know we're still able to make the finals, and that's what we want to see because we're Collingwood supporters? But is a win like this fantastic for our season as we get a bit arrogant for the week and we love what's happened? But is it, if we'd lost this game, is there actually youth that could have been coming through against the Bombers if we chose to swing the axe or give other guys a crack against the Cats and the Hawks that's more beneficial for the season beyond 2026? Because I think we need to split our thinking into sort of, we're very short-sighted right now. We're very happy, but is it actually not the worst thing to be losing games if we're going to give the younger guys a crack at it?
I believe so. I believe if we lost that game, my mindset as a supporter
against the Blues
is very much shifting automatically to let's just get the young blokes in. We're seeing it with Anderson. We're seeing it with Steen. Charlie Steen. I thought even Will Hayes had some moments on Thursday night. Not a standout game, but when he got his chance, he made the most of it in a big time moment late in the game. So if we had lost this game, I'm very quickly shifting to that mode of thinking of, right, let's play the kids.
Youth policy.
Long term, this is what we need to look at. But I dare say if you're Craig McRae, and we love hearing him speak, I honestly feel also, I'm ever the pessimist about Collingwood. I always generally will take the negative path. However, I feel like over the last few weeks, apart from that Brisbane game, we have dominated the game from a contest point of view, from around the ground.
Forward.
We've had our hands on the footy a lot, and we've been defensively really sound. The way we shut off the corridor, I thought, against Freo was really, really impressive. And there were shades of that again against Carlton. I thought there were shades of that, even though, yes, the scoreboard looked like it was going to get away from us at certain stages. It still felt like, for large periods in this game, we had the ascendancy in it. We had control of the game. However, the inability to score and the inability to take our chances when they come or even create chances is still a massive problem for us. So we're still very much on this teetering point where, the good is very good and the bad is not very good at all. It's very bad. And the best sides in the competition, the one that go ahead and win these things, the difference between their good and bad is minuscule. So look, I think this conversation that we're having right now about playing the kids, I feel like if we had lost this game, we're calling out for it. And then I think it's just going to be a week by week thing. I think losing to Essendon, although, the betting agencies and stuff would have a starting favourite, and many Collingwood supporters, as am I, would go into this game feeling somewhat confident. I still think that's very much on the cards. So this next month of footy against a reasonably lacklustre side in Essendon who have played some good footy in the last fortnight into the form teams of the comp, Geelong, Hawthorn and Sydney. We're going to know a lot. I feel like I'm saying this a lot, but we're going to know a lot about ourselves, and we're going to know a lot about. I think we're going to have a real big pin in the ground by that Sydney game about where we're at and what the future looks like, and certainly for the rest of the season, because it can't keep going on. We cannot. On games on Thursday night, I was sitting level 4, Nico, and the amount of times, again, where you're sitting there after having the play for 5-10 minutes at a time and you're waiting for a Dan McStay to get on the move, a Tim Memory to get on the move, and you're looking inside the forward 50 and there's just no movement whatsoever. And, but again, we spoke about Pat Lipinski before about how poor his entry's been. I'd make an even stronger case to say that the forwards aren't creating anything for them to kick to. So therefore, how good can their entries be at all? So 100%. That is still our number one problem at the moment. And that's probably, if we can fix that though, I foresee us, we can probably, reach as high as 4th or 6th, I'd say. I feel like we're still that good of a side and we can still dominate teams defensively enough to be that good. However, creating chances and taking our chances has just been null and void up until 3/4 time against the Blues on Thursday.
So thank you. Great breakdown. And I enjoy having this sort of parallel viewpoint of how our season looks in the short term and then the consequences of the longer term, given we know we don't have a stack of high draft picks that are being developed at the moment. We've gone for mature age guys like McStay and Perryman and Houston, all guys that Fly wanted because he prefers to go for recruits rather than draft picks, and that's been the strategy, but it will come unstuck once Tassie comes in for a few years there. So last point for me, Nico, if we lost this game or if we drew this game, 3 players from us collectively that were below the line and we're probably saying they should get dropped, but we're not talking about it now because we won. Is there anyone that comes to mind? Just because Paddy Lipinski's one that I've had an eye on, but he comes away with coaches' votes. So it's a difficult one to wrangle with. I'd just love another couple of names potentially from each of you.
Okay. So Lipinski was definitely number 1 on my list.
Because it's easy to be positive when you win. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're right. You're right. Well, are you talking about the 23 that have just played on Thursday?
Yeah.
So are you looking at an Ed Allen? I'd be very surprised. Again, he's just
which moves away from the chat about playing the youth.
No, I know, but if we're going to be serious for a moment, then
there's still a selection integrity component 100%. Based on form.
Yeah.
So he's had his 10 disposals.
I think there needs to be a discussion about Dan McStay still, particularly when you got Charlie West waiting in the wings, and Tim Membry's almost in the same conversation. I think Tim does a little bit more inside 50 than Dan does, or he's at least showing a bit more. But it's probably between those 2 or those 3 at the moment. There's probably not anyone else that I'm clear cut saying. I think Jack Chris was on the borderline for a few weeks. So don't get me wrong.
He was better.
He was better, and he's had a better little passage. But nothing else springs to mind, Jacko, unless you had a.
Yeah, just a few names to keep circulating because we did almost lose.
Exactly right.
Is Ned Long in the conversation?
I think Longy's been okay, but once again, probably right on the line. Anyway, if nothing else comes to mind now, that's okay. I think it's just great that we're analysing it with a balanced mindset.
Yeah, well, for mine, just to name a few, it's very similar to what you boys said. I think Dan McStay been incredibly quiet. Had the 2 goals on
the body language though.
Thursday. It's still lethargic, still not
dropping
throwing
the head.
His weight around.
Houston's another one for me.
I tend to agree with that as well. Again, high disposal output, gets a lot of the
low
ball,
impact,
but low impact, low impact. And again, if we're looking, we lost this game, or we're looking to the future, long term. how much are we costing ourselves by having blokes like Dan Houston out on the park? I think Ed Allen is very much in that conversation. Just another one of these recruits very similar, following the Finn McRae mold of he's good enough, too good for twos, not quite good enough for the ones. I'm so glad you brought up Pat Lipinski, Jack Chris as well, Nico, because it's one of those ones again against Brisbane. Shocking. He's one of our senior figures in our team. Needed him to stand up and has he's been okay, but again, this long-term thing, are we better off just sticking with Long, Anderson, Daicos, these types of players?
Harvey Harrison.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
There was Lockie Sullivan as well, who we know can get a run through there. Look, off the top of my head, not at the moment. There was one I thought that it might have escaped me, but looking at the list, Bo McCreary is the other one.
Oh,
so
you reckon?
Massive fan of Bo McCreary. Massive fan of what he does when we don't have the ball. I just think at the moment he goes quiet for far too many periods in the game. Yep. Far too many periods. And it seems to be indicative of when we aren't able to score. That again, it's how do we like to play? What does a good Bo McCreary game look like? Running from end to end, slingshotting off half back, taking the game on the wing, laying a big tackle, going the other way in the middle of the ground. And I just don't feel like it's probably, again, it goes back to my point before about the way that we're playing.
Correct.
And the way that we're moving the ball is hurting these guys. It's hurting them significantly. So he's more in that conversation of if we start playing fast footy and fast, exciting Craig McRae, Collingwood footy that we know that we can play, I don't have any doubt that Bo McCreary is a lock. But I just think at the moment, the way we're playing, he goes quiet for far too many periods in the game. I know that might not be a little bit unpopular.
I don't know if I can agree with you there.
Yeah, go on.
No, I was going to say, I think he was one of the only Collingwood players on the ground to have less than 70% time on ground, first and foremost. Second of all, he was our leading tackle count again. Still hit the scoreboard, still had 15 touches. I understand that there's definitely patches of games where he's missing, and that is certainly a concern. I think we're going in the wrong direction if we're talking about dropping him. That becomes a real concern because he's still a pivotal part of this team going forward, and he's in that age bracket where he certainly needs to start taking the next step. Again, I'd love to see him in the midfield a little bit more than we are right now, and maybe that's the way we inject him in a bit more, but maybe it's just from the fact that he's not having enough game time on the ground.
Probably the wrong time to bring up his name in that conversation. That was more, I know what you're saying. Following the Pat Lipinski side of things. We need, the way that we're playing, the slow, methodical approach does not suit Bo's game at all. And I just think his impact on the game is, again, it's quashed because he can't play the game that he wants to play.
Yeah.
Fortunately for Bo, though, he's got other facets to his game that he can rely on a little bit more than some of those other names.
Speed,
that we talked about. Exactly. That allows him to still be around at times.
Yep. Good way to seal it off, Nico. Thank you for indulging me there, boys. I just
no, that was good.
I think these are names we need to keep bubbling to the surface. If there's guys waiting in the wings that we can blood. But
it's a fair conversation to have because you're right. We're a kick away after the siren from this being a very different conversation on the podcast. So you're spot on. I was going to bring up the fact that I look at the top 10 right now because we're 11th, and there's probably only one side I'm confident enough to say that we're better than right now. So Sydney. No. Fremantle, no. Hawthorn, no. Gold Coast, no. North Melbourne, they've had a very, very soft start to the year. I'm happy to concede that we're probably better than North Melbourne right now.
Yep.
But I know you're not. Okay. Geelong, no. Bulldogs are 50-50 now with these injuries. You don't know how they're going to be going forward.
Darcy.
Melbourne, I can't say we're better than Melbourne.
No way, not at the moment.
Not the way with that they've been playing. And they've just knocked off Brisbane and Gold Coast in 2 of the last 3 weeks. Brisbane and Adelaide.
Yeah.
So
North.
Again, very small sample size. It's only been 6 rounds, but with the trend going forward, and I know we've come off a win, you'd have to suggest that you can't consider us to be in that bracket of teams.
And I don't think that we'll have a percentage higher than 105 to finish this season if we win more than we lose because we just don't have enough supply.
Well, of the top 12 teams in the competition right now, only one side has a lower percentage than us at the moment, and that's Melbourne.
Yep.
But again, they've got an ability.
And they're still scoring heaps in those close wins.
I was going to say, they've got an ability. Our score on Thursday night was the highest of the year.
I know.
13-10.
85 rule.
88, the 85 rule. All right, let's move on. Let's get some fans' input here. Let's get to SpeakPie. Again, we got a lot that came in. Had to narrow it down to 7, so thank you, everybody that did send it in. Grab your headphones, boys. If Geez, my voice is holding up real well.
You get a break now.
Oh, yes. It's funny. My cousin Rob, shout out to him, sent me a text after the game and said Colin must have got into him at 3/4 time after last week's spray because Colin was, he was up and about.
He was angry with Daniel, wasn't he?
Oh,
Big
I mean, look,
time.
I don't blame him.
No, I think we
blame
all
him.
are.
I think we're all in a similar boat. So, but that's okay. All right. So we're going to get to SpeakPie. So again, thank you everybody that sent them in. I had to narrow it down. So I've got 7 here to play. And the first one that I want to play, just as the page has disappeared on me, that's okay. Callum, and his name is Conflicted Callum. So you do wonder how this is going to be.
I think we're all feeling a bit conflicted at the moment with about how the Pies are going.
Like, it's funny because it's Carlton, but fuck me, boys. Like, we need to do better. We are fucking stinky.
Yep.
Wow, stinky. I haven't heard that word used to describe Collingwood for a while, but
No, but unfortunately, that's just how we are at the moment. Who is next? Julia is next. Thank you, Julia.
Today I'm grateful to the Carlton Football Club for their reliable ability to fall apart in the last quarter. I'm also grateful for the legend that is Whisper Nicky Daicos. Now, if I could just make one tiny request alongside this, it's that, hey, Collingwood, if you could play like that last quarter for the entire 4 quarters next week and every week there onwards, that would be fantastic. Up the Pies.
It's a pretty fair request, I would have thought. Who is next? Nick. Nick is next.
Morning, lads. Nico here. Great win. It's always fucking unbelievable beating the scum. It doesn't matter if the game was absolute dog shit at times, but it's fucking so good beating them. And look, I'm just gonna ask the question, right? Is it at all possible that we can somehow get Peter Daicos to continue to breed? Because that man has produced someone that just took over that last quarter like only the greats can. That play from Nick where he literally got it out of the middle, ran forward, got the hand pass, handballed it off, continued to run to the goal square, kicked the goal. That was basically him just saying, you know what, fuck it, I'll just do this myself and take over and carry the team over the line. What a man. Look, if I came home one night and Nick Daicos was in bed with my missus, I'd get on his side of the bed. I wouldn't kick him out at all.
Oh, Nick. That's
good.
a classic, that one. That's good.
great
He's not
point.
wrong.
Yeah.
He just thought, yep, I'm just going to do this myself.
I think it's a great point. It's one that I thought about too. Do you reckon Nick was a bit flat that in his own 100th game, he was the one who had to ignite the side when you look for those acts of courageousness and...
Yeah, but imagine the ego boost.
look, he's too humble, at least in front of the cameras. But
True.
I just thought it was interesting that he was the one. I'm not surprised, but yes, good point by Nico. It looked like he had a few sherbets on Thursday night.
If Peter Daicos was a stallion, mate, like a Melbourne Cup winning stallion, his special sauce would be worth a fair bit, I'd say. So if we can, I don't know what Elon Musk is up to these days, but if he can get some sort of cloning and all that going on, we'll take it.
Josh is getting married soon.
Yes.
So, I mean,
Get busy, son.
I reckon.
Just on Josh, gosh, we would have had a few conversations about him and his free kick that he gave away to potentially cost us a
Very
draw. I would have expected a bit more from someone of his experience.
Was it there? Are you absolutely paying that free kick?
They're always going to pay that. Regardless of if there was a bit of simulation, you feel like the second they go to ground in that situation, more often than not, they're going to pay it.
He had the rush of blood. It was a silly move that late in the game. But yes, let's hope that never happens again.
No, he's, yes. Imagine Nick playing like he did in the last quarter of his 100th game. With his brother.
Imagine Friday night dinner at the Daicos' house. Would have been awkward.
I reckon Peter would have got to him first. Josh is next, funnily enough. So thank you, Josh.
Hey, boys. That was frustrating, but a win is a win. But let's be honest, 6 goals in 3 quarters of footy is a joke. Like, how can you only kick 6 goals in 3 quarters of footy and then go kick, 7 or 8 in the last? Like, frustrating to say the least. But a win's a win, but also is a bit concerning to a degree because now we've got that win. I think it's going to cover a lot of the issues that are going on for a few weeks, which probably isn't ideal. So hopefully they can keep working, get better, and I don't know, do something to that forward line because those entries going in are just so bad. So bad. But we beat Carlton, so on to the next day.
It's interesting he brings up the concern about, the 6 goals, and obviously we've spoken at length about how much of that's our, really big, red flag at the moment in our game. What did you boys make of the way we closed out the game? Obviously got right on top in that last quarter, and I feel like Collingwood sides of old probably win that game by 20 or so points, but maybe it's more to do with Carlton flicking a switch and getting their game going a little bit more after being, lethargic for the first start of that quarter. But, Fly often speaks about playing the minutes and managing the moment. So I just wonder if, we're just losing touch of that just a little bit.
100%. It's a fantastic point that you've made. Maybe we were too quick for our own good at the start of the last quarter. We kicked those 3 goals very quickly to tie the game. And then we got out to, was it close to a 20-point lead at some stage?
I want to say it went out to 13 points.
During that last
stage,
quarter. It had nothing to do with Carlton, in my opinion, because they were shot. They just fortunate enough to find themselves with a couple of chances and then go forward with a chance to win the game. I felt like we definitely shut the game down way too early. And that is a little bit of a concern considering that's not typically how we've done things at times, or if we have shut the game down a little bit earlier, we've been smarter about how we do that. Either other teams have figured us out in that scenario, or there's just not a confidence there, Marcus, to sort of, remain with possession of the football, but be smart about the way we've got when we do have ball in hand. Because there were times that we were just going long down the line far too often, particularly for a team that was, again, trying to conserve the game.
Yeah, it felt like there was times where we were in the wrong gear. We had gears in this match, particularly last term, but killing the game with 10 minutes to go, no good.
No, not at all. 3 more to finish. This is Leo, who's up next, so thank you.
What a confusing game. 3 quarters, we were absolutely nowhere. It was looking no better than last week. And then to come out in the 4th quarter and not only win the game, but to get our highest score of the year. I mean, what do we even take from that? Was it a good game or a bad game? I really don't know. But there's 3 things we do know for sure. Number 1, Nick Daicos is too important to this team. We would be completely lost without him. It's not exactly the mark of a great team, but thank God he was out there. 2, Oscar Steen creates wins. He needs to be featured in the center prominently from now on. And 3, most importantly, that no matter how bad we are, no matter how inaccurate, there is no force on earth stronger than Carlton's ability to lose a game of football. And that's a very comforting thought. Go Pies.
Very well said.
You just take, I think if you're in the 4 walls this week, you are ignoring the first 3 quarters of footy and really the last fortnight of footy and saying, boys, this is how we want to play. Let's go and get it.
I like it. All right, Irvin, let's hope there's a bit more positive this week.
I'm out and about on my post-game walk around my suburbs on a Thursday night in a much better mood than last Friday because that last quarter brought back some very, very great memories and created some new ones. Man, I don't know. When Membry kicked that goal late and the crowd just fucking rose as one behind the goal, I don't think I'm ever going to forget that. That noise, that sound, it's one of the most beautiful sounds in the world. That roar, it's just, inject that shit into my veins. I'll happily die of an overdose from it. But anyways, normally I try to be calm and analytical and measured in these, but the last 2 weeks, fuck it. Last week was bad, and this week is good, because we beat the fucking scum. And we did it in the funniest fucking way possible. Oh my god, I hope Josh Daicos gets a bit of a fucking spray after the game, because that was a bit of a brain-dead free kick to give away. But still, if we play that way, the way that we did in that fourth quarter, for the rest of the season, I will take whatever result we get playing like that. I just can't stand playing boring footy and losing. I'd rather play fun footy and win, obviously, but whatever the outcome, I'll accept it. Come on, Pies. Let's get this season going.
It's a good point. It's a very good point.
Yep.
I think, yeah.
It's what we're used to
Yeah.
as well, and I think it's what the players are used to. So let's see more of that instinct on show against the Dons.
Yeah, 100%. Well, we need to, really. All right, Colin, let's see what he's got for us this week.
Drum roll.
Hi, Pies Nations boys. Colin here. Well, again, I couldn't fault our endeavour and persistence. But boy, oh boy, our decision-making and execution by hand and foot for 2.5 quarters was woeful. I don't know what Fly said to the boys at the three-quarter time huddle, but he needs to say it at the start of every game. The last quarter was as though we found Mr. Peabody's Wayback Machine, and we were back in 2022 and 2023. And Nick Daicos, you can have your Ashcrofts and Wizards. They're not even worthy of being the Masters' apprentices. It looked like Oscar was finally given free rein to jump and tap. What a difference it makes when we get first use out of the middle. I thought Ed Allen put in and has the belief that he belongs. And Gus Anderson was good again. I think some of our guys, when within range, should be selfish and have a shot instead of passing it off. I don't know what Jamie was thinking about in that first quarter. You guys do a great job with the pod. I hope you are sending off all the SpeakPies to the club so they know the depth of feeling of our passionate members. Looking forward to Anzac Day, and go Pies!
That's exactly what we do, Colin. We send them all to the Pies, and they listen to every single one. Yeah, and he touched on Gus. We didn't even talk about Angry Anderson. I thought he was very solid again on Thursday night.
Yeah, his kick inside 50 on the left peg, which was an absolute mongrel to Dan McStay. But it was a nice little sidestep before it, Jack, that was excellent. And then obviously his pick up in the final turn with the 360-degree turn that led to the kick when Nick split the pins, and then I think he lined up Jamie for that set shot. Some very high-impact moments from Angry Anderson, and I think he goes and plays his first Anzac Day.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just also after, how good he was against Freo in his debut, just to look, again, every bit the AFL player against the Blues. Again, probably not an amazing performance from the stat sheet, but still just looks comfortable out there. It's not like he's getting the ball. Sometimes you see with these first, second, third gamers, and they can look like a bit of deer in headlights sometimes, like we have seen with some others. So really impressive, first time playing at the MCG against the old enemy. No bigger moment really, and it's got to be said he came to the table. So fingers crossed he can do that again on Saturday.
Still 5 tackles from 17 disposals, 300 metres gained, a couple of clearances. So certainly nothing.
Reefed it away from some of those Carlton blokes as well. Just took it off him and said, "No, this ball's mine. See you later."
Certainly nothing to sneeze at all. Thank everybody again for sending them through. We really do appreciate the SpeakPies that are sent each and every week. I will make an executive decision, and we're going to chat to our guest, the crowd winner, Daniel, another time. I just feel like we've already gone a fair bit longer than we usually do, but we've had some great discussions. And Daniel, well done for being our guest to crowd nominee winner. We will get to you at some point this year. No one tipped the margin, by the way. We did not have, Lukey just got back to me before, not a single person tipped the 5-point margin at the end of the game. So very surprising, but oh, well, there you go. Obviously, they all thought we were going to win by a lot more. That's all I'm going to guess. And then quickly to wrap up, we've got the VFL who came back into action during the week, Marcus. And unfortunately, we weren't able to get the same result as we did in the seniors, going down to Carlton at Icon Park.
Yes, look, I did have a look at the game on Friday night, and I watched intently from halftime onwards. Turn the TV on, Jacko. 0 goals 6 we'd kicked to halftime. So talk about supply issues in the ones. They have certainly been, unfortunately, against the Blues, apparent as well. Went on to lose the game 85-54. So unfortunate. Carlton had a stack of AFL players in that side. So they're clearly playing their youth in the ones, and there was some pretty washed up players, Blake Acres and Matty Cottrell and
Adam Sard.
He's playing
oh boy.
twos, Aussie.
Yep, he's playing
George
twos
Hewitt
weekly.
playing reserves.
Best and
Do you reckon
fairest.
they're all getting down there going, ooh, every time he kicks it?
I was listening intently and I could not hear a whoo, so stick that up your cunt. Yeah, look, we can't be talking too loudly. We did lose, but we'll get that full lowdown from the Surge.
On
Or will we?
voice.
Oh, here we go.
He's
Debut.
come to the table.
Surge Pie.
We're getting a voice memo from Serge. He's brought it to the table. I haven't heard this, to be fair. It's 90 seconds of gold, I'm
Waiting
sure.
a long time for this.
All right, Serge. How did you go?
VFL Pies, with 13 AFL listed players, took on the Blues for their first night game at Icon Park. It was a very insipid performance by the Pies in the first half, and they were held goalless. The Blues just won the territory battle and just kept the Pies for the majority of that half in their defensive zone. They couldn't strike out. There was no run nor connection. The Blues just dominated centre clearers and stoppages. We were just struggling. The Blues led by 8 points at quarter time and extended their lead further to 44 points and effectively win the game. The Collingwood defence was under siege for most of the game. A better effort in the second half. They made some positional moves. Noah Howes into defence. And Harvey Harrison into the middle. Smith kicked our first goal 3 minutes into the third quarter, and the Pies started to move the ball more aggressively, kicking 5 goals in that third quarter to reduce the margin to 29 points. Going into the last quarter, still playing aggressively, we just could not reach that gap, and the Pies went down by 31 points. Final scores: Blues 11, 1985, Pies 7, 12. 54. The result was flattering. Had the Blues kicked straight, that would have been a lot more damaging. Sam Swaddling was impressive with 27 disposal and 10 intercept acts. He was the standout player for us. Reef McGuinness was improving. Harvey Harrison had a good second half, as did Jack Bullock, kicking 2 goals. It was a disappointing effort overall, and next week we play Essendon as part of the Anzac Day weekend at Vic Park. Go Pies.
Yeah.
Unreal from the Surge. Unreal.
Waited a long time to hear Serge's voice. I know you've spoken to him once or twice, Nico, but magical, and I hope it continues well into this season and beyond. So thank you very much, Serge.
Yep, and I've told him, he's like, this is the way going forward, I think. It's you hear my voice enough for an hour. You don't need to hear another 2 minutes of it reading out his report. It's his work anyway.
Yep.
It's better that it comes from him.
Good work.
Very, very good work. So spot on, Serge, on all points. Sam Swaddling was the talk of the town after that game. So you feel like a debut might not be too far away. Maybe not this week, but certainly not in the long term, maybe in the short term.
Well, also some other names in there, Nico. Harvey Harrison. That's a name that he was, when he was playing in this side in 2024, was really important for us and was looking to take tremendous strides in his AFL career. So obviously coming off the ACL, you got to be a little bit careful with how quickly they come up, especially back to the ones. But fingers crossed, especially with these other types. If we can look to go small in some games, if we continue to keep having the same conversations about mixed days, members of the world, etc., he might be one that could be knocking on the door fairly soon, I'd say.
And the other two that I wanted to mention was he didn't have a huge game, but there was a few nice moments bounding out of defence. Joel Cochran, I thought, was very good, even though, again, they were under siege and Carlton's ball movement was far better than ours, particularly on their home deck. And then Charlie West as well, 16 disposals and a goal. Again, not setting the world on fire, but does there come a time where Tim Membry's 8 disposals and 1 goal one is equivalent of
100%.
Charlie West's performance? And so I just want to keep tabs on those two blokes.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully the VFL boys can get themselves back on the winners list against the Bombers. I know we've ran long, but I need to get your thoughts on this because it's just come through breaking. Zach Butters has won his appeal for the sledge over the umpire, but not for what actually happened. It was actually due to an error in law. If you remember, one of the panel members last week got in his car 3/4 of a way through the case. Jason Johnson, former Essendon player, he left deliberations for around 80 seconds and finished a tribunal hearing in his car for a real estate inspection. Butters got found guilty, Port Adelaide challenged, saying that it had a material impact on the decision, and he won. So Zach Butters' fine has been taken off. Unfortunately, it doesn't really change anything about whether he actually said it to the umpire or not. But I want to get your thoughts on that for 30 seconds because it's such a bizarre case.
It just continues. I didn't know that. It's probably just breaking news, is it, Nico? So as we record this on a Monday evening, Jack, I've almost heard enough about this case, and I just still don't understand how you can have a resolution when both guys are saying the opposite to what the other said, and then there's no evidence, no concrete evidence, missing audio. It's all just a bit too fishy. But I think we need to move on now.
Yeah, move on. I think it's sort of a strange one. Must have the same similar top lawyers to Carlton because they often find a way to get themselves out of some precarious situations. But yeah, moving on, I think is the best point.
Just very, very last thing.
Yes.
My votes, one vote.
Oh, yeah, we didn't even do the votes.
One vote,
my
Harry
gosh.
Perryman, who we didn't speak about enough tonight. Well done, Pez. You were huge. 2 votes to Oscar Skeen and 3 votes to Nick Daicos.
Very similar to me. I gave 1 to Jamie, just because really, I guess it wasn't necessarily off the back of his own form, but when he got his moments, in a game where you only win by a goal, he took his moments, and that was huge in the context. I did give 2 to Pez. Outstanding. I mean, I cannot sing this bloke's praises high enough. Has come into this side, just does his bloody job. 3 to Nick.
1 to Oscar, 2 to Pez, 3 to Nick. So yeah, spot on. Thank you for reminding me. I completely forgot. Hopefully we'll get a proper Daicos Brownlow watch next week. I reckon that'll be good.
Update.
Yes, Marcus, Jack, thank you boys. That was great therapy. I know we won, but it was a very interesting discussion that I thoroughly enjoyed.
Big Anzac Day this week. Can't wait, Nico. Hopefully Darcy Moore suits up. We'll see how we go.
Absolutely.
Huge game this week, Nico, against the old enemy. But thank you for having me.
We'll have a preview for you later in the week. But until next week, I've been Nicholas Sacco. You've been listening to or watching the Pies Nation podcast, where the pies are hot and the drinks are cold.